Then comes the saying of the author, rahimahullah, in the main text, where he mentions these four matters. Al-ula, al-ilm. The first is knowledge, al-ilm. The first is knowledge, al-ilm. Shaykh al-Fawzan said, hafidhahullah, his saying, al-ilm, knowledge. What is meant by al-ilm, knowledge, here is al-ilm al-shar'i. The legislated knowledge, meaning Islamic knowledge. So when we find in the text here, it's been referred, these four matters are obligatory upon us to learn. First of them being al-ilm, knowledge. Which knowledge? So what is meant here is al-ilm al-shar'i. Legislated knowledge, meaning knowledge, Islamic knowledge. Knowledge contained in the text, knowledge of the book and the sunnah. He said, لِأَنَّهُ هُوَ الَّذِي يَجِبُ تَعَلُّمُهُ. Because that is what it is obligatory to learn. And these matters are obligatory to learn upon every Muslim. I mean, what he's about to mention. They are obligatory to learn upon every Muslim, male and female, free or slave, rich or poor, a king or a pauper. Every Muslim, it is obligatory upon him that he should learn these four matters. So someone can't come along and say, look, I've got an excuse, I'm poor, or I'm a slave, I'm this. There's no excuse. You've got to learn these four matters. The Shaykh said, and this is what the ulama, what the scholars call al-wajibul aini, an obligation upon every individual. And it is what is obligatory upon every individual from the Muslims. Then he gives some examples of this. Someone says, what's an example of a wajib al-aini? A duty, an obligation that's obligatory upon every individual. So he gives some examples. He says, so the 5 obligatory prayers, which are upon the men and the women, and the congregational prayer in the mosques, which is upon the men. This is obligatory upon every individual from the Muslims, that he learns about them. Therefore he said, yajibu alayna. I mean, that's why the author said, yajibu alayna. It is wajib, it is obligatory upon us. And he did not say, yajibu ala ba'dina. It is obligatory upon some of us. Rather he said, yajibu alayna. Rather he said, it is obligatory upon us, meaning all of us. Meaning, upon us the Muslims. Upon us the Muslims. So it is from the knowledge which it is obligatory to learn upon all individuals. Because knowledge is of 2 categories. Then he breaks down the 2 categories, as we already indicated before. The first of them he mentions, he said, because knowledge is of 2 categories. The first of them, al-awwal, that which it is obligatory upon all individuals to learn, such that there is no excuse for anyone to be ignorant of it. I mean, that branch of knowledge, any part of knowledge that falls into this first category, that which is obligatory upon all individuals, then there's no excuse for you to be ignorant of it, no matter who you are. So he said, there is no excuse for anyone to be ignorant of it. And it is مَا لَا يَسْتَقِيمُ الدِّينُ إِلَّا بِهِ. He defines what is the definition for this branch of knowledge. That which is such that the religion cannot be correctly established with it. I mean, those matters that a person, if he's ignorant of them, his practice of the religion will not be correct. Those matters, it's obligatory upon him to learn. So he said, it is that which is such that the religion cannot be correctly established except with it. And he gives some examples of that. He said, such as the pillars, the 5 pillars of Islam, which are ash-shahadatan, the 2 testifications, and the establishment of the prayer, and the giving of the zakat, and the fast of Ramadan, and Hajj to the sacred house of Allah. It is not permissible for the Muslim to be ignorant of that. Rather, he must learn it. And all of those 5 pillars fall under those things which are obligatory upon all individuals. I mean, someone can't say, look, there's plenty of people praying, I don't have to pray. There's enough people praying in this community, I don't need to pray. Or there's enough people in the world making Hajj, I don't need to make Hajj. I've got the ability, I've got the wealth, but there's enough people making Hajj these days, I don't need to do it. No. These matters, these 5 pillars, are obligatory upon every individual. Then the Shaykh said, since learning the meaning of the 2 shahadas, learning the meaning of the 2 testifications, is to learn the aqidah, is to learn the creed and belief. If we go into the 2 shahada, the shahadatain, and what they mean, then what we are studying is creed and belief, the branches of the creed and belief. So the Muslim learns al-aqidah, he learns the creed and belief in order to act upon it. And he learns whatever opposes it in order to keep away from it. This is what is contained in the 2 testifications. In the Islamic aqidah, the correct aqidah, and whatever is opposite to it. Likewise, he learns the pillars of the prayer, the arkan al-salat, the pillars of the prayer, and the shurut al-salat, and the conditions of the prayer, and the wajibat al-salat, and he learns the obligations of the prayer, wa sunan al-salat, and he learns the sunnahs of the prayer. He must learn these matters in detail. It is not just the case that he can pray when he does not know the rulings of the prayer. How can a person do an action when he does not have knowledge of the action which he is performing? How can he do it? How can he perform the salat? How can he perform the prayer when he is ignorant of its rulings? So it is essential that he learns the rulings of the prayer. And the mubtilat of salat, and he learns those things which nullify the prayer. He must learn this. And likewise, the Shaykh said, likewise, he should learn the rulings of the zakat. And he should learn the rulings of the fasting. And he should learn the rulings of the Hajj. So when he wants to perform Hajj, it becomes obligatory upon him to learn the rulings of the Hajj and the rulings of the Umrah in order to perform these acts of worship in the prescribed and legislated manner. Obviously the point is that if you don't learn how it is to be performed, how can you perform it correctly? If you don't learn the way in which each of these acts of worship is to be correctly performed in accordance with the Sunnah, if you don't learn that, then how can you expect to be performing it correctly if you don't learn it? And the Shaykh said, this category and this category, no one is excused for being ignorant of it. And it is what is called al-wajib al-ayni, that which is obligatory upon every individual, upon every Muslim. So that's the first category of knowledge, al-wajib al-ayni, that ilm, knowledge which is wajib al-ayni, obligatory upon every individual. And he mentions the second category. The second category from the categories of knowledge is that which is additional to that. Knowledge which follows on and is additional to this branch we just mentioned. From the legislated rulings which the ummah, which the nation together has need of. And it may be the case that not every individual has a need of it. Matters which the nation, the Islamic nation as a whole, have a need of this knowledge here. But maybe not every individual will have a need of of every part of this knowledge. The second category of knowledge. Then the Shaykh gives some examples. He said, such as the rulings of bay', of trading, and the rulings of dealings and transactions, and the rulings of al-awqaf, the rulings of endowments, religious endowments, and mawarith, and laws of inheritance, and al-wasaya, bequests, and the rulings of marriages, and the rulings relating to crimes. These are essential for the nation. All of these matters are essential that the Muslims have this knowledge. They don't lose this knowledge. The Shaykh said, however, it is not obligatory upon every individual from the nation that he has to learn it. Rather, if these things are learnt by sufficient scholars, by sufficient number of scholars, such that what is required is attained, then that will suffice. All these matters that he mentioned here as examples, matters of inheritance, bequests, endowments, dealings and transactions, so as long as sufficient number of people of knowledge have learned this, so that the Muslims can refer back to them, then that suffices. It doesn't mean everybody, every single Muslim upon the face of the earth has to learn these things. No. Not like the first category. The Shaykh said, then that will suffice, so that they can fulfill the need of the Muslims for legal judgments and for religious verdicts and for teaching and other than this. This is called wajibul kifaya. This is called the communal obligation. That which is, so long as some of the community, a sufficient number of the community learn this matter, then the obligation falls away from the rest. And the Shaykh actually says that. He says, such that if a sufficient number of people carry it out, then sin falls away from the rest. And if all of them leave it, then they will all be sinful. Meaning that this is still an obligation, it's still a wajib, it's still an obligation, it still has to be carried out, but it's not an obligation that every single person has to do it, like the first one. As long as a sufficient number of the ummah carry it out to suffice, then that obligation will have been carried out, and the sin, which would be there, if nobody carried it out, we'd all be sinful if these matters were not learnt. But if sufficient number of people learn them, then the sin falls away from the rest for not learning them. They're not sinful for not learning them. Then he said, so the ummah, the nation, must have people who learn this category, since they are in need of it. However, it is not said to every individual, it is obligatory upon you to acquire knowledge of these matters. Because this may not be possible for every individual. To learn all these detailed matters of inheritance or the detailed matters of trading, wouldn't be possible for every single Muslim to learn all of these matters in detail. The Shaykh said, rather, this is specific to the people of ability and the people of capability from the nation. And because if this is learnt by some of the nation, then the obligation has been established. Contrary to the first category, For there, every individual is accountable for it himself. In the first branch of knowledge, that preceded the first category of knowledge, every individual is himself accountable for it. Because it is not possible for him to perform these actions except with knowledge. And therefore, the Shaykh, meaning the author, Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah, he said, Yajibu alayna. When he's introducing these matters, he said, it is obligatory upon us. And he did not say it is obligatory, yajibu ala al-muslimin, aw yajibu ala ba'dihim. No, he did not say it is obligatory upon the Muslims or it is obligatory upon some of the Muslims. Rather, he said it is obligatory upon us, meaning upon everyone from us as an individual obligation. In the matters, stressing the point that the matters he's dealing with here are not from the second category that's just been mentioned here. They are from the first category that every one of us has to learn.